One of the most renowned pharaohs of ancient Egypt, Ramesses the Great, ruled from 1279 to 1213 BCE. His reign is remembered for his great military victories, astounding architectural feats, and thriving diplomacy and culture. In this video, we will delve into the detailed overview about the life of Ramesses the Great. Number 10. Reign duration. Ramesses II, often known as Ramesses the Great, was one of the longest reigning pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt, ruling for an astounding 66 years, from 1279 to 1213 BCE. His father, Seti I, had created a solid basis for his son's future leadership, which made it easier for him to ascend to the throne at a young age, roughly 14 years old. Ramesses' long reign gave him the opportunity to enact a number of long-term measures that had a significant impact on Egypt's political climate and sense of national identity. He had several difficulties while in power, such as opposing groups among the nobles, causing internal unrest and external threats from the strong neighbors like the Libyans and the Hittites. His skillful handling of these intricate situations was evidence of his political savvy and military strength. He built a centralized government that preserved authority over enormous lands and heterogeneous inhabitants, guaranteeing Egypt's continued supremacy in the ancient Egypt. His reign was marked by peace and wealth, which were essential to Egypt's continued standing as the region's preeminent civilization. Significant advances in architecture, art, and religion were also made possible during his long reign, which had a lasting effect on Egyptian society that persisted long after he passed away. Beyond his achievements during his lifetime, Ramesses II's legacy is defined by the respect that succeeding generations accorded him, as seen by the fact that succeeding pharaohs took on his name and emulated his governance. Number 9. Military leader. As a military commander, Ramesses II is frequently praised for his astute strategic thinking and forceful expansionist tactics meant to fortify Egypt's boundaries and increase its sway over adjacent regions. His numerous and thoroughly recorded military campaigns demonstrated his dedication to upholding and advancing Egyptian interests. One of the most important moments in his military career was the Battle of Kadesh, fought against the Hittites in 1274 BCE. It's regarded as one of the earliest fights in recorded history, with extensive descriptions from both Egyptian and Hittite perspectives. This battle is noteworthy for its complexity of tactics and movements in addition to its size, with an estimated 20,000 Hittites and 10,000 Egyptian troops engaged in combat. Even though he was outnumbered, Ramesses showed incredible tactical acumen by going on the offensive against the Hittite camp without warning. However, because of misinformation about the Hittite reinforcements, he was outmaneuvered throughout the battle. Both sides declared victory when the battle finally came to a standstill, but Ramesses went back to Egypt and declared it to be a win, a claim reinforced by widespread propaganda in the form of reliefs and inscriptions portraying him as a valiant warrior chosen by the gods. In the end, his conflict resulted in the first peace treaty ever recorded between Egypt and the Hittites, demonstrating Ramesses' innovative diplomatic feat of striking a balance between military force and diplomatic acumen. Number 8. Architecture marvels. Perhaps the most striking example of Ramesses II's legacy is his colossal building, which embodies his ambition and deference to the gods. He started a massive building program that resulted in the construction of some of the most famous and important buildings from ancient Egypt. His tomb, the Ramesseum, is close to the Tabis and contains enormous statues and elaborate reliefs that tell the story of his military exploits, as well as mythological themes that highlight his divine ancestry. This temple was a house of worship, as well as a memorial to his fame. Its ornate carvings, which showed a number of deities with the Ramesses, strengthened the notion that the gods had selected him to rule Egypt. But the real representation of the Ramesses architectural vision can be found in the temples at the Abu Simbel. These temples, which are set into the solid rock beside the Lake Nasser, were created with exact astronomical alignments in mind. Twice a year, at particular periods known as the equinoxes, the sun shines on the statues, depicting Ramesses sitting with the other deities inside the inner sanctum. Ramesses' connection to heavenly energies and his people's perception of him as a god-king were strengthened by this alignment, which was more than just ornamental. The opulence of these construction achievements was meant to honor Ramesses in addition to making sure that he would live on in the memory of future generations as a magnificent pharaoh who made a lasting contribution to Egyptian culture. These buildings used as propaganda devices to demonstrate his authority and strengthen subjects' allegiance in addition to their religious functions. Number 7. Cultural patronage. Ancient Egyptian civilization reached a pinnacle under the Ramesses II's reign, which was distinguished by a flourishing of the arts and intellectual breakthroughs in a variety of subjects. By commissioning multiple works that not only celebrated his accomplishments, but also portrayed scenes from mythology and everyday life in ancient Egypt, he actively encouraged the arts. Poetry and historical accounts stressing Ramesses' divine right to rule were written by poets and scribes respectively during this period of increased literary output. His status as a deity on earth was further cemented by the elaborate engravings and hieroglyphs found in temples constructed during this period, which documented important religious rites followed by Egyptian culture. Furthermore, Ramesses II was a patron of dance and music, which were important aspects of Egyptian public festivals and sacred rituals. He recognized the ability of art to influence public opinion and uphold social standards in society, making it more than just decorative. His reign cultivation of cultural diversity left a lasting legacy that impacted later generations of writers, painters, and intellectuals who found inspiration in this dynamic era. Number 6. Diplomatic marriages. During a period when political forces were constantly changing, Ramesses II recognized the value of diplomacy in preserving stability both within Egypt and in its connections with surrounding powers. His marriage of foreign princesses as a condition of peace treaties or alliances with adversarial nations was one of his most important diplomatic moves. It demonstrated political astuteness as well as cultural fusion. For example, he married a Hittite princess, cementing the bonds between their royal families and signifying peace between their two countries after years of war when they signed the Treaty of Kadesh. By introducing common practices and traditions, these foreign brides enhanced Egyptian society's cultural mosaic and added in the integration of foreign cultures. Ramesses maintained peace while elevating his own political standing at home by marrying into wealthy families in nearby regions. The strategy showed that he recognized that diplomacy was just as important as strength of character in maintaining Egypt's authority in turbulent times. Number 5. Prolific family. In addition to being well known for having an enormous family, Ramesses II was also a key player in royal politics during the period. It is said that throughout his reign, he had around 100 concubines and wives. Because of his prodigiousness, there would be several contenders for the throne following his passing, guaranteeing the royal lineage's continuity, even in the event of future rivalries or disagreements over succession rights between various social groups. Long after Ramesses II's death, his children continued to exert influence over Egyptian governance as they held a variety of positions in both military leadership and government administration. A few even rose to become co-regents in their father's final years or succeeded him as pharaohs. Because of his large familial network, he was able to fortify ties between various social groups and increase allegiance within Egypt's nobility, which greatly aided in keeping the country stable during his succession. Number 4. Divine status. For the duration of his administration, Ramesses II deliberately fostered the perception of himself in Egyptian culture as a living deity, a monarch who combined celestial and terrestrial authority. In his artwork, he often portrayed himself as larger than life, appearing both physically commanding in monuments made up of stone or metal, and opulent in inscriptions that described his religious devotion as well as his military exploits, inspiring citizens to consider him as their guardian appointed by higher forces, as well as legitimizing his authority by portraying himself as divinely chosen, were two goals achieved by this self-promotion. Inscriptions honoring his divine nature were frequently found in temples built especially for him, along with pictures of gods blessing him. This visual narrative served to highlight how deeply ingrained ideas of monarchy were in Egyptian culture. By placing himself within this supernatural structure, Jesus aimed to establish both authority and a lasting legacy that would outlive even death. Number 3. Economic prosperity. Significant economic prosperity during Ramesses II's reign made it possible to undertake large-scale construction projects without depleting resources or inciting unrest among the public. Under his leadership, the Nile River was improved agriculturally, increasing crop yields and guaranteeing food security for Egypt's expanding population. Under Ramesses' reign, trade routes were opened up, enabling trade with nearby areas like Nubia and Punt, which are rich in precious resources like gold, incense, and exotic products that enhance Egyptian culture on both an economic and cultural level. This economic stability supplied an abundance of funds required to build colossal structures, such as temples and palaces. And it also supported military efforts to secure trade routes that were essential to maintaining prosperity throughout time. Number 2. Historical documentation. One of the first known pharaohs, Ramesses II left behind a wealth of records about his reign, including inscriptions found in temples, monuments, papyrus scrolls, and stelae dotted over Egypt. These documents offer priceless insights into many facets of ancient Egyptian politics, religion, and culture during this crucial time, as well as demonstrating his attempts to influence public opinion by using propaganda tactics to exalt himself as a ruler and deity. His painstaking documentation comprises in-depth narratives concerning military expeditions, as well as religious rites carried out in temples devoted to him or other gods revered throughout Egypt. Historians today have a better understanding of the everyday practices, governmental ideas, customs, and artistic expressions that were common throughout ancient Egyptian culture during one of its most successful periods, thanks to the wealth of the material from this era. Number 1. Enduring legacy. Long after his passing, Ramesses II's influence endured because he came to represent might, grandeur, and cultural wealth in ancient Egyptian history. His name was taken up by 9 other pharaohs who aimed to uphold dynastic continuity as well as to imitate his accomplishments. The monuments constructed during this time, such as those at the Abu Simbel, are still recognizable landmarks that draw both tourists and academics. These buildings stand as enduring examples of innovative architecture that demonstrate how deeply ingrained ideas of kingship are in Egyptian society. These specific details illustrate why Ramesses the Great is still regarded as a legendary character in ancient Egyptian history because of his lasting legacy and life achievements. If you liked our video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.